Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to a short video explaining Pauper Commander. So, you want to play Commander, but you're not rich. I think this is a dilemma that a lot of us end up in, because that's just simply the state of Magic the Gathering finance right now. Unfortunately, you know, there's a lot of really expensive cards, and I think Pauper Commander provides an excellent alternative to having to spend bajillions of dollars to compete with the members of your playgroup which potentially have, you know, been playing for a very long time and their decks are full of really expensive broken cards that you simply can't compete with. So, you know, what's an alternative to this? What is a method that you can still be extremely competitive? You can still have a lot of fun deck building, and you can still really apply yourself to deck building and playing and having a lot of fun without the brokenness element, without that kind of pay-to-win element. And additionally, if you are somebody who's willing to spend a lot of money on Magic, how do you avoid being in that situation where you really want to make your deck stronger, but you don't want to become too powerful for the playgroup that you're in? And I think Pauper Commander is a really good alternative because all of those worries are eliminated. It essentially evens the playing field in terms of monetary advantage, because there's basically essentially no pay-to-win aspect of Pauper Commander, I guess. But I'll get into that more later. For now, we're just going to talk about the rules of the format and a bunch of notes about why the format's awesome and why y'all should be playing it. So, assuming that you're familiar with regular Commander, EDH, here's just a brief reminder. By the way, I hope this is visible enough on the camera. I'm not 100% sure. Can you guys see this small writing? I don't know if this is, you know, maybe if you're watching in 1080p this will be visible, but maybe it's not visible in lower resolution. So let me know if this is too small writing. I think you can see in the viewfinder, I think the brief reminders is good, but I'm not sure about this. Just testing out this new method of filming videos with this computer screen. I've never really tried this out much before, so it's an experiment in progress. But anyway, so in a Commander deck, you're going to be playing with Highlander Singleton, which means that you're only allowed one of each card in the deck, except for basic lands, as opposed to regular Magic, which is 4 copies. Your deck is 99 cards, so 99 plus your commander is 100 cards. Much larger deck, much less consistency than regular gameplay. You can cast your commander from the command zone at any time, and you can recast it for an additional 2 mana each time it dies, so you kind of always have access to your commander, so players build decks around the commander naturally. And color identity, lastly, meaning that you have to build your deck within the same colors as your commander. You can't have mana symbols that are outside the mana symbols on your commander card. So, and I'm just going to assume you guys are already pretty familiar with this, so I'm not going to go into detail on this, but okay, so the first main difference about Pauper Commander is that you have a uncommon creature instead of a legendary creature, as in regular Commander. And obviously there's no uncommon planeswalkers, so there are no planeswalker generals in Pauper Commander. Let me just check my notes here. Oh yeah, and I wanted to talk about why this is cool, is that there are... Okay, what did I write down? Before Guilds of Ravnica was released, there was 828 legends. Now there's maybe a few more. So there was 828 legendary creatures that you could pick to use as your commanders. However, at that time, there was also 3,210 uncommon commanders. Did I say that right? I think I said that right. So 828 legends to pick from if you play regular commander, was just over 3,000 uncommons. So the amount of choice and selection of commanders goes up fourfold if you play Pauper Commander, which is kind of pretty interesting, especially given the fact that also a lot, or I should say most of these commanders have never even been experimented with or tried by anybody. So it can be really fun, experimental, kind of, you know, just a lot of extra options kind of open. And some people additionally like to play, that's why I put or common in brackets underneath there, with either uncommon or common generals. It doesn't really matter, it doesn't make a huge difference. My play group, we play with uncommons only as a commander, but I think if you play with commons as a commander, that's totally fine too. And if you did that, you would have over 7,200 different commander choices, which is a lot. That's definitely a lot more than we're used to with regular commander. Might add more levels of diversity, I guess, in gameplay. You know, you're not going to be seeing the same generals quite as often as when you're playing regular commander. And the next rule is that the deck has to be commons only, and this is something that everybody should know. If you are familiar with regular Pauper, this is sort of the same kind of general rule, or if you're not familiar with regular Pauper, what this means is that the card has to have been printed at common rarity in at least one set in Magic the Gathering's history. You can easily look this up by going on the Gatherer, which is the kind of official Magic the Gathering card database, and just seeing, making sure that you can actually sort by commons on the Gatherer. It's a really great tool. I'll provide a link in the description if anyone's unfamiliar, but I'm assuming most of you have dealt with the Gatherer before. So that's how you can check if it was printed at common in an online set. If it was a non-online set, doesn't matter, as long as it's been printed at common at some point, and you don't need to use the common version specifically. You can use an uncommon version or even a rare version. There are a few cards which have been printed at rare and common, strangely enough. You can use a rare version, you have to be sure that it has been printed at common in at least one set. So, the next rule... Oh yeah, but one more thing I should mention is that, before we go into this next topic, is that you start the game with 40 life and 21 commander damage to kill a player, just like in regular Commander. So if you get hit by the same commander cumulatively throughout the game to a total of 21 damage, then you will lose that game as long as it's by the same commander. And some people do enjoy playing with 30 life instead, and around 16 to 18 commander damage. I've seen variants online, people who play like this. I personally prefer, in my playgroup, we find that 40 life and 21 commander damage is perfectly fine, and is actually quite fun. And the games don't drag out forever like you would think they would. And this is for a very specific reason, which I'll talk about later, that kind of balances the game out. I think 40 life and 21 commander damage is fine. That's just my opinion. So, creative, unexplored, undefined. What do I mean by this exactly? Regular Commander has been played so much. It's been played so much by players for a very long time that it's become more and more rigid and defined. I'm not going to say it's nearly as rigid and defined as like Modern, for example, but it is rigid and defined now. In some senses of, if you want to be competitive, or even if you're not that concerned with being competitive, but you just want to have an awesome deck, there is just so many resources and there's so many like decks out there on forums and websites and stuff, people who have already tweaked and defined decks. So if you have a commander, it's just really easy to go online, and like, how can you not look at other people's deck lists and get really good ideas that way? But what it ends up doing, though, is it ends up kind of reducing the creativity in the format, because it's just so easy to look at what other people did and create awesome decks that way. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it's for people who really like being creative and kind of exploring new paths that have never been explored. I almost picture, like, in my head, you're in a field of grass, and with regular Commander, that grass has been patted down, and you can see very clearly defined pathways of the directions that you can take your decks. And whereas in Pauper Commander, the grass is still tall, you have no idea where the paths are, you have to discover those for yourself. And I find that to be a lot of fun, because I really like deck building, I really like going on the Gatherer and just looking through cards and being like, oh, that would be a sweet card, that would be a sweet card, you know, looking through binders at shops and being like, oh, I'm gonna totally add this to my Commander deck, and, you know, going through my own collection as well and just kind of making it all up. I personally love that, and if you're a fan of that too, I would highly recommend Pauper Commander for you and your playgroup. So, brings me on to the next topic, which is that it is very affordable, which is very nice. I mentioned this in the beginning of the video. This is probably one of the key elements that makes Pauper Commander awesome, is you're not limited by that pay barrier anymore. It's completely up to your own skill and your creative potential and your competitive potential if you're playing it competitively. And if you're not playing it competitively, then all the more reason to not spend a crazy amount of money on the deck. And I would like to point out too that this doesn't rule out making a deck that's really kind of almost like tricked out and like really cool looking by foiling it all out and getting really cool versions of cards, because there are still, like, it's not like the foil versions are, you know, just like everywhere and they're super common. It's still definitely like cool to have a foiled out deck, and a deck with like expensive promos. Like there's like a $70 Brainstorm promo. You can get a $300 actually Mercadian Masks printing Brainstorm foil, whereas the original is like $1. So it's kind of like the amount you want to spend on your deck becomes an option rather than kind of an obligation, which is a lot nicer in my opinion. So I mean, you can spend $500 on your deck, but you don't have to. You only have to spend like $30 max kind of thing on a deck, maybe 40, 50 max if you really build a deck with all the most expensive commons in it. But yeah, just it really eliminates that sort of that barrier almost, I guess. And yeah, not pay to win. I'm just seeing if there's anything else in my notes that I wanted to cover. Yeah, basically, and the other thing I wrote down here was you can get 10 decks for the price of one. So you can build 10 different decks, have a lot of fun, and a lot more different games for the price of just building one deck that you'd normally be able to build with regular Commander. So the next topic is that it's versatile. And what do I mean by versatile? What's really nice, and because I think a lot of people probably think, and maybe one of the reasons they don't get into these fringe formats and these unmainstream formats is because they don't think they're going to have anybody to play with. But what makes this format awesome is that you can still play with it with people who are playing regular Commander decks. And the reason is because, like, in my personal experience, I've never had anybody reject the idea of me playing Pauper Commander with them, because why would they, right? It's like I'm literally offering to use weaker cards. In like, why would they? I've never had anybody have a problem with that. And because, like, I mean, technically you are breaking one rule, and that's through the legend rule, which is that your commander has to be legendary. Whereas in this case, your commander is probably not legendary; it's probably just an uncommon. But I've never had anybody not be fine with that. So I mean, realistically, 99% of the time, 99.9% of the time, you're going to be able to use these decks in your play group, regardless if they also play Pauper Commander, which is great, and it's a great way to introduce people to the format. If you do want to play the format and you want your friends to get into it, is you bring your Pauper deck, your Pauper Commander deck, and you play with them, and they expect that it's going to be super weak, but then you actually end up like winning the game, which it honestly does happen more often than you think, because everybody's ignoring you, and they don't realize that there are actually quite a few really good synergies that you can build, and then you end up kind of stealing the win in the end. And that can be a really great way to introduce people to the format. So I really think that's not a barrier for this Fringe format, unlike other Fringe formats where you have to have like a dedicated group of people to all build a deck in that specific format. And so that's just another advantage of Pauper Commander. Nextly, and this is getting into sort of the game's meta and just like the way that games play out. And because I think a lot of people sort of think that the games are going to be so long, right? Like if all the creatures are lower power, and especially if you have the same life total and commander damage requirements, that games are just going to last forever. But they don't. Actually, I've found, in my personal experience, games last around the same amount of time as regular Commander. And the reason is, like, you don't have as good of removal. It just doesn't exist. And especially board wipes. So, like, I mean, that's just huge, really. I mean, there's a few board wipes. There's like one good one in red, I think. There's like a couple in black, like Crypt Rats, but they're not amazing. And I mean, most of the time, you're gonna have significantly less, like 1/10 the board wipes that you would have in regular Commander, which really actually shortens the amount of time that games take. And I think, in my personal opinion, I kind of don't mind having a play experience where my battlefield is not being wiped clean every 5 turns, you know? I kind of enjoy that. And I'm not ripping on Commander. I'm not saying that Commander is a horrible format, but I think that's really cool about Pauper Commander. It really changes up the strategies that you can use. And so that's why games, yeah, they don't end up actually taking longer. I would say they take about the same amount of time. They're very fun, they're very interactive, you know. And additionally, I think I do find them to be a little bit less repetitive sometimes, because you don't have access to as many tutors either. So you can't just line your deck with Demonic Tutor and Diabolic Tutor and Mystical Tutor and all these ways to make your deck more consistent and always find the same cards. It does become a little bit more varied and diverse as well. And what I wrote down here too is like just a little bit more skill intensive, a little bit like more, if you have kind of a sliding scale between something that's you know, there's still a little bit of skill, but a lot of luck as well, like poker. And I mean, maybe people are going to flame me in the comments for saying that, so I'm not super familiar with poker, but I do believe there's a lot of luck involved with poker. So I put this on one end of the spectrum, and I put chess on the other end of the spectrum, where the game is completely defined by your skill, essentially. And there's a lot less luck involved. It's like, you know, mostly strategy. And then I think Magic is somewhere in the middle. And then I think Pauper Commander is just a little bit closer toward chess. I think it's just a little bit more skill-intensive, strategy-intensive, and a little bit less luck-based, a little bit less also based on what's in the deck and what you can afford, which I think is really great, personally. So the next thing... Oh, okay, I guess I did have a slide about it. Oh, my bad. I guess I thought I just forgot to put that in a slide because I had it in a different order in my notes. But yeah, so life total, yeah, I already went over that, so you guys are familiar. No ban list. So this is another thing to keep in mind for just the logistics. If you are deciding to maybe try Pauper Commander or introduce it to your play group, don't follow the ban list on the Pauper Commander, on the regular Pauper sort of, I guess, forums or the regular Pauper rules online or paper Pauper rules. Like, there's really no reason to have to ban a lot of the cards that are banned on there. And I don't think there's a reason as of yet to ban any cards. There are certain places that will have maybe a watch list. I'll include a couple of those in the description. And they'll just have commanders that, you know, people think maybe these are too strong, but they need more playtesting to determine that. And, you know, maybe a few cards, but in reality, like, you can't combo off when there's only one of each card in the deck, and you don't really have tutors to find them. So I found, like we all use those overpowered ban cards from regular Pauper in my playgroup, and they've never been overpowered at all. Like High Tide, we've never had any problems with that. Like Dark Ritual, I don't think Dark Ritual is banned though. And no, it's definitely not banned in regular Pauper, but you know, cards like that, they're just, you know, there hasn't been any reason to ban any cards, and that's kind of nice too. You just kind of have free reign, you don't have to worry about a ban list or anything, but definitely don't use the ban list for regular Pauper, because that's kind of completely different, and there's no reason to if you can only have one of each card in your deck. And the last thing I should talk about is just a ending, I guess, of the video, and to provide you with more resources if you are interested in Pauper Commander. Basically, I just wanted to make this video to explain to people, because I'm gonna be making a lot more videos where I'm talking about Pauper Commander and a lot of like tips and tricks about Pauper Commander, you know, decks that you can build, a lot of ways to have fun with Pauper Commander on this channel. And I just wanted I wanted to make a reference video that I can send people to basically just explain what Pauper Commander is all about for people who are unfamiliar. So that's sort of the purpose of this video, and I'm going to include some links in the description of card databases you can use, like the Gatherer, and Scryfall is another one. And I think, yeah, both of them have a way to sort by rarity, which is very helpful, so you can just look through all common cards and see like what is available to use in each color and stuff. Excuse me. And there is some, I'll say right down here, so Pauper Commander ideas and deck lists. Yeah, so there are some forums. You know, there are a few deck lists available. There's small communities that play this right now. And so you can definitely go on these forums and check out other people's deck lists if you want to get ideas and stuff. But there's not so many like in regular EDH where like every single general has had 10 deck lists attached to it. No, it's not like that. But it's just if you want like a few ideas to help you get started. And also various Pauper Commander rules pages I'll include in the description as well. So like I mean, a lot of these rules are conflicting, which is unfortunate. There is no, at least I don't think there's like an official Pauper Commander rules page. There used to be one, and it claimed to be the official page, and then it linked to a different page that was more updated, but that page is like a dead link now, so I don't really think that can be considered the official rules anymore. So I don't really think there's an official rules now. It's pretty much just the way that actual Commander EDH was many, many years ago, which is just, here's the advised rules, and you can basically just have whatever house rules you want. You know, it's a little bit more leeway in that sense to sort of change things up a bit. And yeah, that's everything I wrote. So that is the video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you enjoy Pauper Commander. If you play Pauper Commander, definitely let me know in the description, because you know it is definitely more of a fringe format, and it's not so common to see people who also play this format. So definitely let me know in the comments if you have played this format before, and that would make me really excited to hear from you. And yeah, I hope you guys found this informational video to be helpful. And stay tuned for more Pauper Commander related content and various other videos talking about various other topics as well. I'm not just going to talk about Pauper Commander, of course, in the future of this channel. And I'm going to go turn off the camera now. Woo!